Hello, everyone. Okay, here we are. Thanks again if you hear things this morning and maybe for today's. Welcome to you, Neil. Happy to share the stage with you, only for a few minutes because after that you're on your own. Do you want to say a few words before we start?
Yeah, really appreciate you guys having me. This is going to be fun, and I can't wait to talk about SEO. It's one of my favorite topics.
Yeah, and I can't wait to. I gotta say that I'm pretty excited about this one. Just before we start, just a few details. We've already pretty proud because this event is an amazing success, and even before you, Neil. So imagine what it is after that. We have over 5,000 registrants. So imagine it's huge. As we have a huge number of participants online, we may have some technical problems, but we make sure that everything's going to go well. So we have a technical team behind that. If you have any technical issues, go in the chat. We have a team dedicated to help you, basically. So yeah, go on the chat room, and we do everything we can to help you with that. Of course, please be respectful to one another in the chat. We are a huge number of people, so we know how it can be. I'm sure the community will be respectful of all of that. And I think that's all I have to say for today. I think the stage is yours, Neil. Let's get to it.
Awesome. Well, everyone, thank you guys for having me. And I really appreciate you guys taking your time. I know everyone has a busy schedule. So let's dive right in. I want to talk about rethinking SEO, the modern approach to online growth. I know a lot of people already know this subject, but I want to cover a lot of stats and data and trends and talk about some things that'll influence what you guys do going forward in the future. But before I get started, my name is Neil Patel. I'm the co-founder of NP Digital. We're a global ad agency. We've helped a lot of different brands drive more traffic to their websites. We have tons of awards, over 1,000 employees. We're in 20 plus countries, including, France or UK, and the list goes on and on. And, when we look at SEO, a lot of people have been talking about like, oh, I think SEO is dead. Well, 8.5 billion Google searches a day tell a different story. Think about that. There's more searches on Google than the population of the world each day, right? If it was really dead, Google wouldn't be generating that much traffic. It's kind of crazy to think about. Yet most pages indexing Google get zero traffic, right? So the issue isn't Google. The issue is that a lot of people are creating content and they're saying SEO is dead because majority get little to no traffic, right? It's actually over 90%. When we analyze all the web pages and Uber suggests that are ranking on Google in the last 30 days, more than 90% got zero visitors from Google, right? Think about that. More than 90% of the web pages. That means 90% of the content just isn't producing results. And a lot of the reason people are doing SEO wrong is it's either they're not really fully optimizing their site. So you can't do 80%. You got to go to 100%. It's either all or nothing. Or they're using outdated tactics like reciprocal linking or buying links. They don't necessarily understand what SEO is. And a lot of people are like, well, I'm kind of getting my rankings. I'm done now. Let's move on. And it doesn't work that way. You can't set it and forget it. You got to continually improve and adapt over time. When we look at 10,000 websites, here's what we found. 3.28% of the web pages on a website, excluding pages like About or Contact or the homepage, contain little to no content, less than 100 words. Now, if your web page is on how to tie a tie, that makes sense. People want to see images or video, but that's not most queries. Now, 4.71% of the web pages had broken links or old outdated content, and 60.29% of the web pages had no backlinks. Like, think about that, all right? If you have no backlinks going to it, it's going to be hard to get rankings. And 35.22% of the web pages had only one or no internal links. If you have no backlinks and you're not cross-linking, it's going to be a really tough job to rank for pretty much anything out there. SEO isn't the dodo, right? Because most people are like, man, it's so hard. It's not going extinct. It's evolving, and it can continually produce a positive ROI. When we look at organic search, it is changing in a big way. When we ask people what they thought about the AI overviews or SGE, a lot of people felt that, hey, SEO is going to change in a big way. And it has. And the biggest disruptions expected in the next 2 years is things like AI enhanced search, and 70% already trust that the results provided by AI or generative AI, in other words, they don't mind it. But there's a big thing that people are really missing. So Search GPT is going to come out. And as Search GPT rolls out globally, people look at it as like, man, this is going to kill Google. Well, there was an online experiment that someone ran with Perplexity, Search GPT, and Google. And they asked the current list of speakers at the latest Demand Force conference. Search GPT showed the speakers from the previous year. Perplexity was more accurate. Google was definitely accurate, where it just sent you to the site and it showed you all the speakers. People expect search results to be accurate. And Search GPT is going to have a long road ahead of A, improving its accuracy, and B, people are used to a lot of basic stuff. What's the weather like? What is 2 + 2, right? Yeah, that Search GPT should be able to do. Or let me book my flight. A lot of the basic features you're used to in search are not going to exist on Search GPT. I get it's the original version or the first version, but what's most likely to come about is search engines that you're used to using will integrate all the features that Search GPT has to offer. And then you'll have one-stop shop where you pretty much have everything that you need. And things have changed over the years, right? We used to be used to 10 blue links, and over time, there was no guarantee that there's even 10 links. And now there's a lot of AI overviews and zero-click results. But Google's still driving more traffic to websites. Our customers at NP Digital, even all over the world, we analyze the traffic a week before AI overviews rolled out and a week after, and we still saw traffic increases because you can now optimize for them to cite you within the AI overviews, which gives you a new opportunity. And there's also a lot of new tools. It's not just Chat GPT or Search GPT. There's also Perplexity. There's also U.com. And the list goes on and on. U is funded by Salesforce. More and more players will continue to enter the market. And we're entering a more competitive search market. In August, the judge ruled that Google's engaged in anti-competitive practices to cement its search dominance. Look, things can change with Google. And based on the articles I've seen by, a lot of these financial sites like Bloomberg and CNBC and some legal sites, they say the most likely outcome is the courts are just going to have Google change some of their practices versus just splitting apart the company. But when you think about search, it doesn't matter what noise you're hearing in the market. The time to claim the search market share is now. Gartner predicts that traditional search volume will drop by 25% by 2026, but search volume is also increasing in other ways, right, that aren't as traditional, like the AI overviews. So for example, Google doesn't break out specifically what portion of our traffic is coming from traditional search versus the AI overviews. But with the rollout, we've seen an increase in traffic. You just got to adapt to the new ways that they're adjusting search and not just rely on their traditional methods. And one of the new ways that you have to adapt is what we call the new version of SEO. Instead of search engine optimization, we call it search everywhere optimization. And the reason we say that is people use multiple platforms. Back in 2020, the way people used to search is search engines mainly. And in 2024, when we ask people and we survey them, they use search engines, social media, AI chatbots. And I know the percentage adds up to more than 100%. It's because people can use more than one channel. So you need to optimize for all the platforms. And it's a great way to generate traffic. For example, if you sell purses, well, when someone types in purses on Instagram, you want to show up. Or if You offer a B2B marketing SaaS product that helps you grow your SEO traffic. When someone types in SEO, you want your product to show up with a tutorial on how to use it to grow your SEO traffic, right? Search everywhere optimization means optimizing for traditional search, social, AI, shopping, and the underdogs. If you think about all the channels and you do them successfully, you're much more likely to dominate and win in the long run. So let's first talk about optimizing for traditional search. It really is dominated by Google and YouTube. Sure, there's also Baidu out there. It's hard to get stats and data on how Baidu stacks up to Google because a lot of the analytics companies, they're either China-based or the rest of the world minus China. But either way, we know Google is the most popular search engine, and we know the second most popular search engine is YouTube, which, funny enough, is owned by Google. Outside of that, the safe assumption is it's going to be Baidu. Now, when you think about search, these sites make up so much traffic. Look at this. When you're just looking at global traffic, 18.32%, 6.96%, 25% of global search traffic goes to Google and YouTube, according to SimilarWeb. It's kind of crazy to think about. It's a lot of monthly visits. And you're also seeing these search providers continually adding new features and formats. For example, 15.8% of Google search now show images, and 62% of Google searches now include a video carousel on the SERP, and 7% of searches are generated with AI overviews. So when you think about that, that's a lot of changes that are happening. And as long as you can adapt, for example, creating video content, it can help you with your YouTube traffic, and it can help you with your Google traffic as well. You also want to tap into the power of YouTube. They have so many monthly logged in users, roughly 2.5 billion. It's a crazy amount. And videos are 50x more likely to rank organically than plain text results. Just think about that. When a video is shown above the fold on Google, people click on the video more than any other thing. But yet, very few companies are actually creating videos in their marketing. So make sure you start creating videos. And you want to keep an eye on social trends. For example, a lot of people started talking about turmeric. And when they started talking about turmeric on social media, what happened? It just boomed in Google search. So a lot of people will find stuff on, let's say, TikTok or Instagram, but then it causes them to go to Google to search and then buy a product. And when you are optimizing for your Google rankings, the same thing holds true that it did 10 plus years ago. The gold is above the fold. Ranking at the top gets you tons of traffic. Ranking at the bottom doesn't get you as much traffic. It really is that simple. You don't want to be number 10. You want to be number 1 or number 2 or number 3. There's no better spot than number 1. Top 3 is great too, because you're not always going to be number 1 no matter how good you are at SEO. And there's, of course, other search engines such as Bing. If you're not optimizing for all the platforms out there, you're losing volume. And you may be like, well, Neil, Bing can only provide me 4% of my traffic. And YouTube can only provide me another 3%. Oh, and Facebook maybe 5%. And Instagram maybe 2%. Well, all these channels add up. You start going after all of them. Next thing you know, you grew your traffic by 30, 40%. It really does all add up. Don't just rely on one source. So now let's talk about optimizing for social. You want to help your content stand out with social SEO. 1 in 4 customers or consumers use social media for search. Just think about that. Roughly 25% of the people on social media are using it for search. Most people don't know this, but the average person spends more than an hour on social media a day. I believe the average is around an hour and 27 minutes, somewhere around there. That's a ridiculously high amount. A lot of them are searching. You want to be there, right? And you can use tools like Answer the Public or TikTok Creator Insights or SEMrush or Ahrefs, and the list goes on to try to find keywords that people are using on each of these platforms. It will then end up giving you insights on what's working on the social web. For example, with TikTok Creator Insights, you can end up seeing what's hot and what's trending right now, and that'll give you insights on what you should focus on and what you shouldn't when it comes to ranking higher on social media. Because remember, well, 1 in every 4 people are using social media to search. You want to make sure that your content's there so you can rank and get that traffic as well. You also want to capture search traffic from Google, because these social sites, they have a lot of deals with Google. For example, Google has a deal specifically with Reddit. Google has a deal with TikTok. And it's causing their content to be indexed on Google, which is driving traffic to their platform. And if you create content on those platforms, it's going to cause you to do what? It's going to cause you to get more rankings. Remember, when a video is at the top of a Google search result or above the fold, it's the most clicked element. So when you think about that, you need to make sure you're leveraging content, video content specifically, and place it on these social platforms, because it can just drive you more traffic over time. Now let's talk about optimizing for AI. It's more than, most people look at AI as, hey, it's going to help me with just all my basic needs, kind of like I have an assistant, but it really is more than that. ChatGPT has 200 million monthly active users worldwide. And when you look at this, it can help you with data analysis. It can help you with a lot of tasks that we don't use it for. Most people just use it to either ask questions and it gives you answer, or to help write content. But there's many more use cases. And you also want ChatGPT to recommend your product, your service, when people ask it a question. So for example, if you leverage brand mentions, so if your company, your products or services get mentioned more on the internet, you're more likely to be recommended by ChatGPT. If you have great reviews, 4.5 out of 5 stars and hundreds of reviews, it helps. There's also relevancy. Relevancy is someone's interested in cars and your Tesla, and it's related because they're asking about electric cars. Age, the older the product, the business, the services, the better off you're going to end up doing. And you also want recommendations. Recommendations is kind of like reviews, but it's a little bit different. It's like me blogging about your company or your product and just writing a whole article on using it, how it's changed my business and my life. Think of it as more like an in-depth review. And then authority, more people linking to you, more social followers, all this stuff just helps with authority. And we analyzed 82 ranking factors, but these are the ones that we really found help with ranking higher on ChatGPT. Now let's talk about new tools that are entering the landscape. We talked about some of these already: Perplexity, SearchGPT, and You. You should definitely check them out because they have good use cases. For example, Perplexity is amazing, but yet a lot of people don't use it compared to SearchGPT or ChatGPT. And Perplexity can do a lot of stuff that Google should eventually end up doing. And sometimes the results are just way better when it comes to an accuracy standpoint. You, on the other hand, is really good at writing content. You should check it out if you want it to help you craft more content. Now, I don't recommend you just publishing AI written content. I highly recommend it being modified by a human. We found that when content is published purely by AI and not heavily modified, we ran an experiment with, I think it was 68 websites, 744 articles, half written by AI, half written by human. After 5 months, the difference in traffic was roughly 5.44x, in which human written content was getting roughly 5.44x more traffic on a monthly basis. And with AI, you're also seeing AI organized search results. They started rolling it out for things like recipes, but you're going to start seeing them adjust the search results based on how you typically search and what you like over time. Now, the fourth thing I want to talk about is optimizing for shopping, right? So when you think about shopping, it's huge. We all shop online. Amazon is one of the most popular, not just search engine, but one of the most popular sites when it comes to people just buying globally, right? I know there's a lot of other platforms in China, but still Amazon is the king. And they beat out most people. And 50% of consumers start their product search on Amazon, but Google and social media platforms are stepping up their e-commerce game, especially with social media platforms allowing you to buy within the platform. You're going to see it becoming really massive for people to just go on these social platforms And then they're going to go live. Marketers will. And then when they go live, they're going to let you click a button eventually, and you can just buy on those social platforms, which is going to be huge over time. You've probably already noticed this with Google search results, the Amazonification. They've taken a lot of concepts from how Amazon search results work and applied them to how you see results within Google. Been super effective. Why, you may ask? Because you look at Amazon, you like the experience. Amazon's adapting to what people want. So why wouldn't Google do the same thing? Why would they go and try to reinvent the wheel when Amazon's already figured out how users want to shop and search? And they're doing the same thing, and it's making, Google's shopping much more effective and popular over time. And as I mentioned earlier, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram are really cashing in on social commerce. Social commerce revenues are forecasted to surpass $1 trillion by 2028, up from 570 billion in 2023. Think about that for a minute. That's a lot of money in social commerce. If you're not having your products out there, because remember, these social platforms are all discovery networks. TikTok was the first one, but they all adapted their algorithms to be similar. I've bought stuff just based on what I see on social media, right? It's super effective. And Pinterest has tons of potential. Everyone's talking about TikTok and Instagram, and maybe Facebook here and there, but Pinterest is a powerhouse, especially when it comes to social commerce. Pinterest has 465 million active monthly users. Majority of them are women. 80% of weekly Pinners have discovered a new product or brand on Pinterest. But yet, most marketers don't really care for it. And to give you an idea, Pinterest, I'm looking up, the rough company valuation right now as I speak on my phone. It's over a $20 billion company. Like, just think about that, right? And Pinterest's revenue in and of itself is somewhere around $3+ billion annually, and it's growing. Maybe this year it'll surpass, I don't know, 3.5, 4, or something like that. But either way, the point I'm getting at is it's a platform that people shouldn't ignore, even though a lot of them do, and they don't look at it as sexy. Number 5, optimizing for the underdog channels. And there's a lot of these channels, like voice search. Voice commerce is booming. More than 1 billion searches every month are done via voice. And that's a stat we were able to find out, but I believe that number is actually much higher than that. Just think about how many people are going to be asking questions, not just to Alexa, but to things like Siri, now that it's integrating with ChatGPT, and it's going to be even more sophisticated, right? You not only want to optimize for voice search, you want to make sure that you optimize for voice commerce as well. Same with App Store. When you think about App Store, it's a massive channel. There are a lot of apps within Google Play, Apple Play. Amazon App Store isn't as popular, but Apple and Google are extremely popular. If you optimize for them, you can do well. One thing to know about, and sorry for the yawning, I was up really late because my kid did not sleep well. That's what happens when you have young kids. For all you parents, you'll understand. For all you people who don't have kids, lucky you, you get to sleep in. I had the luxury of waking up literally for, staying up for most of the night. But one thing to know about app stores and optimizing for it, with Apple App Store, putting less keywords in the title actually helps you rank better for that keyword. On Google, there's much more flexibility. If you have a few keywords, it's not, it doesn't really hurt you as bad compared to Apple. And with podcasts, I love this channel. I love sharing this stat. Think about this, 1 billion plus blogs. That's roughly one blog for every 7.8 people in this world. Podcast, 4.2 million. That's one podcast for every 1,857 people. And according to Salesforce, the household income for podcast listeners is extremely high. So you want to make sure you're creating it because it's not as competitive and it's much easier to monetize because there's not as many options for people and companies. The good ones do really well. If you just create a podcast, there's a good chance it just does well because there's very little competition. So now let's talk about the modern approach to online growth, right? How do you boost your organic visibility across multiple channels? Because we, talked about how search isn't just Google, it's search everywhere optimization, which is all the social channels out there. But the first step is actually very similar to what you're used to on traditional SEO, which is identifying keywords. If you can identify keywords, you're going to do better. If you don't identify keywords, you're not going to do as well. And you want to do your keyword research before you even create the content. That's why we showed you things like the TikTok creator insights, because they allow you to find more keyword opportunities. And keywords still remain the missing link between what people are looking for and the content that's being created. And you have to think about informational, navigational, commercial, transactional. All right. I won't dive into all of these because you guys already know them. But if you think about the whole funnel and you go after whole funnels with your keywords, and in essence, that means with your content, you're much likely to do better in the long run. Also, search volume isn't everything. Most people really want to go after those head tail terms, but we're finding the longer tail is really starting to make up a lot of the traffic and the majority of the traffic for most websites. And most people don't know this, but out of the 8.5 billion searches on Google each day, 1.27 of them are new unique searches and 680 of them are question asks. Now, I want to clarify on this. When I say 680 million are questions, that means 680 million searches a day are people asking questions to Google expecting an answer. This is why Quora is so popular. And when I say 1.27 billion are new searches, these are keywords people are putting into Google that they've never put in before into Google since the life of Google. In other words, each day, 1.27 billion keywords were searched that were never searched in Google's 20 plus years of being around. This is why you got to optimize for the new up and coming keywords that you see in Google Trends or Google Suggests. And you want to create content around revenue instead of traffic. It's when you look at keywords, it's not just about the search volume, it's also about the cost per click. If there's a high cost per click, there's a good chance that anyone who finds you from the keyword is going to convert into a customer, right? It's much more likely. The last thing you want to end up doing is going after keywords that, drive traffic, but just don't cause rankings. For example, I used to rank really highly on Google for the term how to get more Instagram followers. And my team's like, look at all this traffic. We're getting almost 200,000 visitors a month. And I was like, how many customers do we get this month from it? 0. How many did we get over the last 6 months? 0. How many did we get over the last year? They're like, we don't know. We haven't been ranking that long. I was like, okay. So you're telling me we're getting all this traffic and drive 0 conversions. Cool story, right? Traffic without conversions is useless. You want to create content around revenue instead of traffic. If you create content around revenue, like this bottom keyword, and I get it doesn't drive the volume, but if you get a ton of them, you're much more likely to do better. Now, it doesn't mean the top keyword's terrible. It just, usually when the cost per click is higher, it means you're going to get more conversions. The lower it is, usually the lower conversions percentage-wise, right? From visitor to converted. And you also want to invest in brand queries. When we looked at companies generating from $1 million to $1 billion plus, and we surveyed quite a bit of companies, the bigger the company, the more of their revenue came from their brand queries, right? That's someone typing in your company name into Google, like Nike or Fiat or Mercedes, right? Or Louis Vuitton or Loro Piana or whatever it may be. And you really want to focus on building up your brand. The bigger your brand, the more revenue you generate over time. It's a commonality that most big corporations have. You can't take it for granted. And don't ignore local intent. Brands are losing $54.1 billion in revenue each year by ignoring local SEO. The most common search query is local-based questions within Google. People tend to forget that. And brands that invest in local SEO are 2.3 more likely to be seen by consumers searching for nearby businesses online. And brands with high local visibility index are a 2 to 3x higher than the average year-over-year revenue growth, right? They're just growing faster and faster. You also want to focus on high quality content. We're no longer in the game of just cranking out content. And when we looked at the websites that are performing the best, in which they're continually getting more and more search traffic year over year, even after all the algorithm changes, we found that when we just looked at those websites, 68.9% of their time was spent on updating their content. 31.1% of their time was spent on creating new content. The money is in updating your content. This is why Wikipedia ranks for everything. Their content is continually fresh, and it literally is updated and, is not necessarily a day old, but it's relevant. They update it to make sure it has all the latest stuff. Now, just think of it this way. When you do a search on Google, would you rather see a listing that has content from 3 years ago or a listing that has content from 3 weeks ago? Chances are you're going to want the 3-week one. And you also want to update your low performing pages. So you look at your low performing pages and you want to update them, especially if they're dropping in traffic, or if they're just terrible, you may want to just cut them, right? If they're getting no traffic, you may want to consider cutting them all together. And this improves the rankings of your other pages that are getting traffic. You also want to merge pages to avoid keyword cannibalization. For example, if I'm trying to rank for the term dog food and I have 4 pages on dog food, Google doesn't know which page to focus for the term dog food. But on the flip side, if I had 1 page on dog food and I combine them and all the link liquidity goes to 1 page, I'm much more likely to rank for the term dog food. It really is that simple. You also want to focus on creating content with E. E stands for expertise, experience, authority, and trust. When your content contains E, it's less likely to be written by AI. It is more personable. It makes it more unique. It makes it stand out, and you're much more likely to get traffic in the long run. You want to read that piece of content that has a unique perspective. Content that contains E gives a reader a unique perspective. Content that's written by AI just gives them the same regurgitated perspective that everyone else is offering. Now, when you're creating content with E, keep in mind, your content doesn't necessarily have to be long. It used to be where you need 2,300 words to rank on the page 1 of Google based on a research that I forgot what the company name was back in the day. And what we found is the average word count is actually decreasing across all industries. When we looked at the 10,000 most popular articles on the internet, now some industries aren't in here because we just looked at the 10,000 most popular articles on Google based on search traffic. A lot of them weren't high in word count, and this is the average. And this is happening a lot because of TikTokification. People are used to shorter and shorter content, and they want bite-sized information, and they want the answer right then and there. Microsoft Canada did a study, and they found that our attention span is shorter than a goldfish. Just think about that for a minute. Literally shorter than a goldfish, right? So when you're creating content, you want to make sure it includes E, it's unique, and you're really using humans. When we did a survey of over 1,000 people, only 129 people were using humans to write content. The rest were AI, and another portion was AI combined with humans. But when we did a study that I talked about earlier, with 68 websites, created 744 articles, half AI, half human, after 5 months, the humans ones had 5.44 times traffic on average. I know there's some edge cases where people are like, oh, look at all my traffic from AI, but majority, when we look at the averages, human-written content is just crushing AI, right? And that's important to keep in mind. You also want to enhance your content with video. Video is great. It increases your clicks and traffic, especially because videos can rank above the fold, and you'll get a lot more traffic in the long run for it. So make sure you create video-based content. And if you're trying to figure out what kind of video content to create, here's what performs the best on social. If you look at the left chart, short form performs best, then long form, then interviews and podcasts. What you can do is create like a long form podcast, interview, or expert talk, And then you have that. You also have your long form, and you can take clips from it. And then you can also have your short form, right? You can use Opus to just give you a lot of short form. If you're wondering about text space, that's in the other category. And I pulled out the text space on the right from the other category on the left chart. It's the very bottom bar. And when you look at text, the most common text was how to and listicles. Same old stuff that it used to be. This is why you see open magazines leveraging how to and listicles all the time. So now let's talk about understanding the value of great user experience. If people get stuck on your website, no matter how good your content is, and they can't figure things out, you're not going to do well. If they can quickly and easily figure out how to navigate, you'll do fine. There's not much more to it. It really is that simple. You also want to invest in trust and authority building. When you invest in trust and authority building, you're going to be much better off because people with trust tend to rank better. If you look at Google back in the day, Eric Schmidt and Matt Cutts, the old head of WebSim, used to talk about like, oh, New York Times and CNN on this side and Joe the Plumber on this other website, right? They like ranking sites with trust higher because they know they're less likely to create fake information. And you want to build more links. When we analyzed 10,000 websites, 60.29% of web pages had no backlinks. This is one of the most common reasons why a lot of web pages don't get tons of traffic. And the most effective link building strategies, according to marketers, is superior content. What we found is the most best performing link strategy is to give away free tools. You can end up going to like codecanyon.net, white label tools that you may end up spending like 10, 50 euros for. It's pretty cheap. And you can end up putting them on your website. And we find that builds more links over time than even content, right? So consider that. You also want to create content with link building as a goal. It's not just about writing content. It's about writing content that people will love, want to share and link to, because this is the stuff that's going to do really, really well. A great example of this is Tucker Carlson's interview with Vladimir Putin. I know this is old, has tons of views, hundreds and hundreds of millions, and it has tons of backlinks. Why? Whether you like Tucker or Putin or not, it was content that no one would have ever guessed or predicted that someone could have done, and that caused a lot of backlinks, right? It's kind of crazy. You also want to leverage other content formats. Infographics do really well. I already talked about tools. Quizzes do well. Custom images. You can use Canva for infographics. Videos can do well too, right? So they all help. And you don't want to focus on just creating a lot of content. You want to focus on quality content. Quantity doesn't matter anymore. The web is already filled with tons and tons of quantity. It really is quality. If you don't have quality, it just is not going to work. You also want to focus on reviews, whether you're B2B and you're selling services or software, or B2C and you're selling products. We found that organic traffic for pages with reviews, right? For pages that should have reviews. Not all pages, like About page, should not have a review, for example. But pages with reviews, the more reviews they had, above 151, the more traffic they were getting. We found that above 151 reviews, it doesn't really matter. And keep in mind, these reviews, these products, most pages that had a lot of reviews had a high rating as well. It was very rare that someone had tons of reviews and a very low product rating, because people typically, if you're having a 1-star review and you have 10 reviews and they're all 1 star, you're unlikely to get to 151 reviews, because most people won't buy your product because they think something is wrong. And the other thing that your goal should be when it comes to marketing is to become the cited source. It's not about just creating content. It's about becoming the cited source and letting everyone know about your brand, your information, your resources. So then that way everyone talks about you. And the way you do that is content depth. The more in depth you go, the better off you're going to be. Skimming the surface is not going to make you the go-to resource for anything. In other words, you need to cover topics super thoroughly, or don't waste your time covering them, because there's too many companies that already cover these topics and just skim the surface. And this is, what EAT does to a website. When you go super thorough, you go in depth, we're seeing that brands are getting more and more traffic, versus when they're just skimming the surface, they're not doing well because there's already tons of other pages and websites that have done the same thing, and it's hard to compete by doing that. You also want to make sure that your content, your website's easy readable and skimmable. I don't care how good your content is. If people can't view it on a phone, right, in a simple way, or if they can't skim it and get what they need, it's not going to do well. So things like load time matter, things like readability matter, things like design matter. All this helps make your content more easier to skim. And you should also want to optimize for featured snippet opportunities. A lot of people aren't talking about this as much because of AI overviews, but there's still a lot of featured snippets. It's not only just AI overviews. I look at featured snippets as, or AI overviews as, the later version of featured snippets. Think of featured snippets as like beta. AI overviews is the more advanced version of it, but not every keyword has AI overviews. So you want to optimize for both and not just one, right? Then you also want to leverage other content formats. Like I talked about, this will help you. It creates more engagement over time. You also want to make your images really helpful. And when I say that is, if you're creating content that is on something like how to tie a tie, your images should help show people how to do it step by step. So then that way it helps people get more value from your content. They can read the text, they can watch a video, but they can also look at animated GIFs. And this also just helps your content be more helpful. If I have an article on how to clean my dishwasher, right? Because even though dishwasher cleans dishes, it can also get dirty. I would show images step by step along with text, breaking it down for different dishwasher types. And even if you do all of that, but you don't invest in not just link building, but digital PR in which you're getting cited and noted from other authoritative sources, you're not going to do as well. You want these popular brands, websites to talk about you, like the New York Times or government websites, because it just shows these search engines that you're an authoritative source. And even social platforms are looking at similar signals where they know brands are less likely to create fake information. And this is a big issue because a lot of people are just putting out a lot of false information, hoping to get clicks or leverage clickbait. Even with user-generated content, a lot of it can be inaccurate. But the stuff that is accurate and good, you want to leverage. It can help with reviews. It can help with linkable assets. It can help with rankings. It's all very valuable. And of course, you want to make sure you elevate your content with structured data. And the reason I say this is, if you use structured data, when a search result has, images like this or information like this, where do you think people are going to click? They're going to click on all this, stuff that they're showcasing that's making the search results more unique based on not only what people are searching for and interested in, but also what data you can help provide them so that way it's accurate. The last thing you want is inaccurate information pulling up there. And the way you optimize your site should be in a very methodical way. You want to think about how Google will crawl your website, how a user would want to navigate your website, what makes them easier to understand. And you just want to have a logical hierarchy. You want to optimize your internal linking structure, use proper headings, make sure your URLs are clean and easy to understand and are not too detailed. When your URLs are too detailed, it's easier to rank for long tail keywords, but not head terms. When your URLs are more generic, you want them specific enough to the page, but when they're not too specific where they have like 10 different words in a URL and they only have maybe 2 or 3, you can rank for those keywords that are 2 or 3, plus you can rank for the keywords that are 8 or so keywords, right? It's just easier to rank when your URLs are more broad around a specific topic. It allows you to rank for the broad and more long tail terms as well. So key takeaways: don't focus just on Google, focus on all the major platforms. Adapt your content to fit each of the platforms. So make sure you create videos as well, and leverage synergies and leverage your learnings from each of the different channels. So then that way it can, help. And of course, if you use your learnings and you have the main KPIs in mind for all these different channels, you're going to do better than if you didn't have KPIs in mind for any of the marketing channels that you're leveraging, right? Because when you have specific KPIs, you're not just creating content for traffic, you're creating content for your main goals that move the needle, like revenue or sales, right? Which are more important at the end of the day. Appreciate you listening to the presentation. If you guys wanted the slides, the charts, you can just scan the QR code with your phone and you'll be able to download the presentation with all the charts. And I hope you guys enjoy the presentation, and thank you for letting me present and listening to me.
Wow, just well, Neil. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the one and only Neil Patel. Thanks, Neil. It was an amazing session. I loved it, and I'm pretty sure everybody here loved it. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thanks for the audience for staying with us. I know it's a bit late or a bit early for some of you, depending on where you live. I think we have people from all around the world basically here. So yeah, thanks, Neil. It was amazing to have you here.
Thanks, everyone.
And maybe I will say a few words in French to close this 9th session of the SEO Square. C'était la dernière conférence. Donc, merci beaucoup d'avoir participé à cette 9e édition. Ça fait déjà 9 fois qu'on fait cette conférence vraiment magnifique. On est hyper fiers d'avoir tous ces speakers, de vous avoir vous. Comme je l'ai dit en introduction, on a eu plus de 5000 personnes enregistrées. Donc, c'est vraiment un superbe événement. Donc, encore une fois, un gros merci à nos équipes aussi, à nos partenaires, aux speakers. J'espère que cette édition elle a été à la hauteur de vos attentes, que ça vous a permis d'évoluer dans vos stratégies SEO, dans votre manière de travailler votre content marketing. Si vous avez de forts enjeux SEO, bien entendu, nos équipes sont à votre disposition. Donc, n'hésitez pas à aller sur smg.com et à nous contacter. On sera ravis de vous aider. Et petit mot de la fin, vous recevrez les replays de chaque conférence dans quelques jours. Donc, ne soyez pas trop impatients, ça arrive. Encore une fois, merci beaucoup. Toute l'équipe vous souhaite une très belle soirée. Et thanks again, Neil. It was an amazing session. Thanks.